Home.
Great.
Yeah, we should ask the Meet Echo people to have a second icon we can choose instead of the home that we are seeing a train there, so we can make that visible to everyone. I think I had my first conference from a plane, web conference from a plane in 2003 or something, but that doesn't happen that often.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, Lufthansa had a brief period where they took the connections offering by Boeing, but then they decided this was way too expensive and we fell back into the dark ages.
Okay, now I hear you on the right audio device.
Good. So I still have my 5 gigahertz thing here, so occasionally you will have a 3-second pause in what I'm saying. I think it has to do with whether the airport in Bremen currently has a landing. Then I have little interruptions because of the radar.
By the way, we started 4 past as usual, just to give time. Although the usual suspects are here. Because I guess you prefer also for PRs and such on the GitHub to be shared on screen, right?
Yes.
I can do that. No problem.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not nearly as far as I wanted to be, so there will be not that much to look at, but
still.
I think I have concentrated the important part on the slides, but we may want to switch over to GitHub if we actually get into a discussion.
Maybe just to check the agenda. So what topics do we have on the agenda today?
So that's also in the notes linked in the chat. The main thing is co-pub sub first. We heard of the discussion you had with Jaime. You had something to prepare in addition to what you included yourself. Then there was some bashing from Karsten before the meeting about BERT over unreliable transport too, I think, and href.
Okay.
So I think that there's definitely time to add more if anything needs to be discussed.
Yeah, because I actually need to go at around 5, so before the end of the meeting.
I hope we are done by 5.
Right,
Yeah.
I hope so too. Yeah, at least with pubs up, that would be
Pub sub
great.
is first. Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Three seconds.
You're right. Let's get started. So welcome everyone. This is an interim of the co-working group. Marco, my co-chairs are Karsten and Jaime. And being this an official IETF meeting, the note will applies. I guess all here know them. It's about IPR and disclosing your knowledge about those and our code of conduct. So be nice and professional with each other. Yeah, to reiterate the agenda, the first item is co-pub sub, a few points raised by the ESCO, and with follow-up discussions with Jaime for updating the draft towards working group last call. And then last-minute items, starting from discussions on the GitHub mostly. BERT, I think an issue Christian opened yesterday for Core Clar. And then the follow-up of the working group last call on href, basically. Any more items? Just the plan. Yeah, if none, let's start with PubSub. And I don't think you have slides, Esco, but let me know if I should share something on the screen.
No, I actually don't have slides, although I maybe should have made them, but this week, no time to prepare or do much. So we can just go through the discussion, I think. Maybe share the screen and show the GitHub of Co-op PubSub.
Yeah. Do you want me to?
Yeah,
will you?
just go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Second. I was ready for href, not for this one. Screen. So this particular issue, right?
Let's see. I think, yeah, let's look at the open issue there. This is something else.
This is the wrong draft.
Sorry?
That was the wrong draft even.
Oh, that's the wrong draft. Okay. That's,
yeah.
Doesn't look familiar.
Well, let's take it a long way.
Co-op hyphen PubSub without hyphen.
Yep. There we are. And there's no open issues or pull requests, so maybe it's some closed pull requests.
Yeah, basically we've closed them. So I had a call with Jaime yesterday. And then, yeah, we decided to, or at least he decided to merge the pull request. And the idea was that we should discuss it today. And unfortunately, he cannot be here. So we decided to sync up before, so that we kind of know each other's positions there. I think the one you're showing now is basically a terminology alignment. So he was okay with that. Yeah, the main change is basically updating the terminology to use less different terms. So there was, I think, the topic property term, and there were some different names for that used, including topic configuration, for example. So this change was basically to unify the terminology.
So what was the conclusion in terms of terminology, the common term, topic property?
Yeah, that there used to be the word parameter, which was used as a synonym for a topic property. And yeah, I don't know exactly which one was used most. I think topic property was used more, and parameter was a kind of a minority. So now it has been updated to use the same term for that, so that you know that it's about the same concept. And yeah, I think you can also look it up in the list of concepts now, the terminology section.
So maybe it helps to look at the files changed. Here, right?
Yeah, that could be helpful. And there's also a definition you see there. So topic property has been added in the terminology list. So what is that? So basically we have a topic, and topic property is basically configuration information, a part of that. So you can see it as keys and values or properties that will define basically the configuration for a topic.
All right, so I guess what follows here is just changing the exact words based on that.
Yeah, mostly, and there's some capitalization changes as well, so to make that consistent across the draft. So for example, here you can see in the middle, line 210 and 213 on the right, it changes the configuration parameters to topic properties. So this is an example of how to get that consistent terminology. And some minor fixes as well. As you see on the bottom now, there is this added text, for example, that says that basically the value of that is an unsigned integer, and that was not stated before. So I thought it was just good to be clear about that. So what what the value can be of each of these topic properties.
Yeah, that was just an oversight probably because the type is mentioned for the other entry, so this was just missing.
Yeah, that's for consistency, good to mention. I think in the working group last call for this document, I think other people could also read it and check for consistencies like that. So it's probably a few more that we can find, but this is what I could find in a quick reading, basically, of the draft. So for this pull request, I assumed that this is all okay, so that this has been merged already. And the other one maybe needs a bit more discussion. So that was, unless there are questions on this, of course, we can maybe look at the other one.
Any questions, comments on this one? Anyone? No, then let's move to the other one. And that should be, yeah, understood. One was started and then another one opened to revert the first one. So which is the right one to open here?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's a kind of a series of commits and pull requests, and including a revert. So I did see that finally the changes were included in the main document, basically the main branch. Let me see which one is revert. That should not be the right one. I think the optimize use, maybe that one of RTCT.
Yeah, let's start with it. So 61. And at least if we look at the discussion,
yeah, there's not so much discussion here. So yeah, so this is, you could say, a bit of a bigger change. So not just terminology, but also the change on the wire, basically, because there were some examples given, like, okay, this is typically how the payload should look like. And those examples are basically updated. So if we assume those are examples for a typical case, which a typical implementation could do, yeah, you could say that this has some impact on implementations and what basically is transferred over the wire. Sorry, what's their question?
Marco, could you zoom in a bit, please?
Sure. 200. Okay, so if we look at the changes here, and again, if it's not the best PR, let's switch to the other one.
Yeah, let's see what it is. I think this is correct, basically. It might be that in the final merged text there were some small edits made, but yeah, the basic idea is all in here, I guess. Yeah, maybe we can scroll down a bit just to see some of the changes in the format. Yeah, here it comes, the first change. So you can see here that the CT attributes in link format have been removed on the bottom of the screen, now in the middle. So the argument basically there was, well, CT is anyway an optional attribute that you can include. And it's basically saying, okay, this is link format, what you see there. And because it's optional, you could say we just leave it out, which gets a much more compact payload, which is good for constrained applications. And these applications, yeah, would not basically need this CT attribute here at this point, because we have a particular RT type defined, and that is RT defined in this document. And this is the only document that defines that RT type. And it basically already says that, well, this PubSub collection is in link format, so that there is not even another format defined. So by leaving it out, you're basically saying, well, we don't say anything about the content type or content format. But because the RT is there, the client would kind of know what to do with it and would know in advance, like, hey, this is link format. Because there are no other specifications defining other formats for that. So I think it's useful to include CT if you, for example, have more choices in the format, content format to support, and if you support multiple or maybe a subset of the multiple ones, then it can be useful. But in this case, well, I don't think we should even encourage to include that, because for constrained applications, they just rely on the default content format for all of this. And they probably don't even have the code to handle multiple formats there. So, and it's much shorter than for the whole resource if you just leave out those elements that are not used by the client in practice. They can still be added, of course, but yeah, I think the idea here was to have some typical examples of a compact representation, basically, where it's not included.
So my comment on that was that this is essentially exercising discovery as specified in 7252.
Yes.
And while it indeed is in the end the decision of the party that is being discovered what information they want to make available about a link, 7252 doesn't have this kind of optimization. So I'm wondering whether we are still compatible with that. And Christian's in the queue, so I'm going to listen to what he has to say.
Okay.
I think it is compatible because it doesn't say in 7252, as far as I remember, that any particular resource that is not, at least that is not well-known core, would even give a comprehensive image. So you give some information that you think are suitable, but whether or not that's like the whole story, I don't think that we say that.
Yeah, so I think this is about standard code discovery over well-known core. If I have the context correct, that's the lines above this. Yeah, we have to, of course, adhere to the rules that were defined in 7252 for that discovery. And yeah, and there my reading was that this CT is definitely an optional attribute, so you can also not include it. So you don't give the content format hint, and the client doesn't need it. That was need the hint here. So, but I'm not sure. Was that your reading also, Christian? So that because it's
yeah, I think I was in the wrong line of patch. If this is really about well-known core, then at least there's some expectation already on that interface to give you the selected lines. But there could still be the recommendation to not include, by default, not include those properties like content format in the first place, especially if they are the default ones. So eliding them just because it is being queried that way may or may not be a good thing, but eliding them because you don't even publish something like CT equals 40 on a collection resource is something that I think should be non-controversial. Eliding them depending on what is being queried, might be complicated.
I see what you mean. Yeah, so here it's not because of what is queried. Actually, just in this case, it's just because of two things. So one, that it's optional to include it, and two is that RT will anyway tell the client that CT40 is definitely supported, because that's what this document defines there for the collection type. So you know that CT40 will always be supported for that collection type, because that's the default one. And there's a third thing. Yeah, it makes the query result smaller, so you don't you basically don't send bytes across that the client does not need to rely on. Because while some servers could include CT40, other servers not. So in any case, a client cannot rely on that attribute being there. So if it cannot rely on it being there, then implementers will typically make the client such that it doesn't need that, it doesn't use that, so it ignores the attribute. So it's basically sending bytes over the wire that will be ignored in the end. So that's also the reason to exclude it here.
So the resource type core PS col implies content format 40.
Yeah, that's basically defined in this document what that type means here. Yeah.
Okay. So if we ever have a successor to the link format, we have to do this stuff from scratch. How do we handle evolution here?
No, you don't have to. So you basically will be adding, if you evolve the protocol, you will basically add content formats. So you have to make the server that supports 2 formats or more. You have to make them return those 2 formats. So CT40 and another one. And then basically the legacy clients will work because they just assume it's always 40, and newer clients will also work because they can parse the CT and then basically pick the format that they like. Basically, so that's how it could and should evolve, I think, in a backwards compatible way.
I don't think we'll have to advertise CT equals 400 or whatever the successor is for every single resource. Like the property is defined, so it could be added, but realistically, if a server supports any successor format on, say, well-known core, it probably also supports it on other resources, so the client can, instead of relying on the server to like enumerate this on every resource, just look at what it offers at the initial PubSub broker discovery, and if it sees that if it's already in the path of try the successor, and if it has discovered the document using that successor, it could use that. So I don't think we'll need to prescribe that if a format is supported, it must be advertised. May or may not happen.
Yeah, okay, that's not the requirement, but yeah, the question is how a follow-up future client would actually know that the new formats are supported. So you probably have to advertise it somewhere at least, and I think this is the kind of the main advertisement of the PubSub capability, right? So here, that's basically being advertised. For example, this /PS resource.
Yeah, but like do it on the first resource and not on all the others, because we have multiple that are discovered in a nested fashion. So when you go to /PS with content format 400,
right? Sure. It is maybe not needed for the nested resources on this, but this is like the top level resource here. So I think here in this example, it should then be advertised. So you need something like a version of this PubSub collection, or you need CT attribute basically to indicate what is.
Yeah, that can be a CT on that one, but on like the single PubSub, like this on the single PubSub entry point that is defined for the server, the few sub PubSub entry points.
Yeah, but I think here there are 2 entry points defined, right? So this server is hosting 2 PubSub collections. So maybe typically it would be 1, but I think it's having 2 here. So then each of those would have it.
A question: if the discovery request was sent with query parameter CT40, these links will be still returned, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And even so, they can still omit CT40.
Yeah, I think so.
That's getting interesting.
I mean, one thing is I think, the set of information that the server is storing on the resources it has. And one thing is what you actually end up putting in the links and the response about those.
Right.
Yeah, that can be different, especially for CT. I assume that for RT, that is basically always included in a well-known core discovery. So if you query for a particular RT type, then each of the answers would have the RT attribute there, even though it could be suppressed because you already know what it is, but it's still included basically. That was my reading of the specs and assumption there. But for CT, yeah, that's kind of a particular case because it's basically stated or defined as being optional. But while it's still there, it could be omitted if the server doesn't want to tell that information. And by the way, you mentioned a query for CT equals 40, right? So this is also a case that I don't think anyone has even considered yet, because normally you would query for an RT. So I need to find PubSub collection, so a query for RT in this case. So query for CT40, yeah, that would in practice, I think, hardly be used. I think. Sure. By the client, it's basically saying, oh, I don't have any particular purpose. I just want to see what link format documents you have there, something like that.
Exactly.
And that's
well, you would use this to get a sitemap, essentially. So I think that's actually a pretty likely thing that a management system might want to do with a device.
Right. Just to get a sort of a sitemap of everything, a link format that's supported, whatever it is.
Okay, but those two links would appear again, and like in this example, basically.
Yeah, so we always told people that those well-known core things are actually ROMable. And for that kind of situation, you probably wouldn't make that optimization.
Sorry, which optimization is that?
Leaving off things that are in the ROM.
So basically, if something was in the query, it appears again in the result.
No, right. If that something is in the well-known core at all, you are going to get it.
What does that mean? Sorry. So if the attribute is there, you will always get it?
Yeah, so if you pull this from ROM,
okay, I see.
You just want to send whatever you happen to have.
Now I need to think a bit more. So you say it comes from ROM, so that means it's not okay. Let me think.
Well, then at least we probably want to accommodate systems like that, so we shouldn't say you must optimize this away.
No, that's clear.
You can optimize this away.
I think it's also fine for the server to basically include all attributes or more attributes. Maybe it's sometimes not practical in very constrained systems because there can be networks with very low bandwidth, for example. You probably want to adapt the implementation, but there are also resource constrained nodes on high bandwidth networks, so there it's less of a problem. So this was more about, okay, what do we want to promote as the kind of the typical case of what is returned. And if we do that, for the example, so which is what the pull request does here, do we need something like an appendix to also state other cases? So that is currently not done, to basically to have more examples in an appendix that have a lot of attributes, for example, or saying, okay, instead of this nice short list, you can also get back a huge set of links. I'm not sure about that.
The normative statement is that the server may leave off attributes.
Right.
And then the server likely should be doing something that is not creating a problem for the clients, and whether we will catch all the examples for that, I'm not sure. So I think we should just say that servers may adapt their response to what information is in there that might be redundant.
Yeah, and you were thinking of including such a sentence in the document here, it pops up, or because it kind of already follows from I think the link format definitions that there can be any number of attributes per link, just by definition of that format. So somebody reading this document, well, reading it correctly should be aware of that and reading all the references.
Yeah, I'm not sure that 7252 actually says this. So I think it's useful to just say that we believe that this is what the server is allowed to do.
Yeah, to emphasize that one more time. Now I was thinking that the 6690 definition already kind of implicitly makes that clear. Yeah, it doesn't explicitly talk about it, but
yeah, so that looks like homework to actually read the parts again.
Okay, but yeah, we can at least clarify that part.
Yeah, I was just trying to answer your question. Do we need examples for all different kinds of situations? And I think the answer is no.
Yeah,
so we should
that sounds fine to me. Yeah,
focus here on the pops up aspect.
Yeah. Otherwise, you get maybe lots of examples, lots of more pages. Yeah, but then getting back to this example, so this is meant to be the kind of typical example where now we have the CT removed. So is that okay to do that?
Yeah, if the may is before this example, then I think that's okay.
Sure, yeah. Okay, I think we have some text here on the bottom of the example, so after it. So it says, note that the CT attribute is not included. This is because blah, blah, blah. It's implied by the resource type. And maybe we should say here that also because CT is an optional attribute. So this also tries to clarify.
Do we have any attributes that are not optional?
Well, actually, the other attributes, it's not really stated for. So I think there the idea is if the resource has the attribute, then it would naturally be included. I think CT was the only one defined, basically saying that, okay, the server can leave it out and in that way not tell anything about the content format that is supported for the resource. But maybe I reading this in not entirely as intended. Not sure, because that was explicitly defined, at least for CT, that it can be optional, and then if it's not there, it won't say anything about the content format.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the fact that this is explicit makes this any more optional than other parts of 6690, but I have to again read the text again.
Yeah, because if a particular resource has an attribute, one other attribute, I think, yeah, I'm not sure if that's optional. I think it's kind of implied that that it's also listed in link format for that link. But on the other hand, there are some attributes like if you have titles, for example, so you would not give every resource necessarily a title, a human readable title, because it gets very long. But if it has a title attribute, then I'm not even sure if the server is supposed to leave it out for particular queries. But well, we can maybe say that the server can do that, something like that. Yeah.
I'm not finding the word optional at all, except for in the definition of the term link, where target attributes are described as optional.
Right. Yeah, it can have any number.
So the RT is also optional, but you really would want to have them in this case. So
Right.
I think it's yeah, it's less an issue of optional or not. It's whether the client can make progress based on the information that you gave it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think here it's part of the protocol definition that the RT should be there, otherwise the protocol cannot work as advertised.
Right.
Yeah, but others are not strictly needed. Okay.
So I would probably use some wording like clients may or clients will typically rely on the RT attribute.
Yes. Yeah, that would be good to clarify maybe.
Yeah, I think that's useful to have some expectations here, because it may not be clear to a server implementer how a client actually is going to do its discovery work.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, then maybe scroll down for another example, because we have some other as well where things are removed. So here you can see another example where the CT is removed here. So this is not about basically advertising link format in CT, but a newly defined content format here. Let me think, what was the context of this one? This is a well-known query. Yeah, let's see, this is for the configuration, basically. Yeah, topic resources.
It looks like the same pattern, only that this other resource type makes you imply another content format.
That's right, yeah. And also these are different resources, so these are not the entry points to topic collections, but these are actually topics on a server. So I think in this example, it has 2 topics with path. And yeah, it's again the same arguments in this document. We basically define this resource type, and yeah, it's defined to have that one and only content format. No others are possible. So that's why it's possible to leave it out here. And you have to remember that the number of topics on a server could be large. Yeah? Like it could be hundreds. And then it saves quite a number of bytes by not including this repetitive information all the time, which is always the same number. In this case, it's aiming for 606.
Yeah, I think the other comment I wanted to make is that it shouldn't look like the server is expected to leave out this information. So
right.
In the previous example, there was a sentence, the content format is not included. And it's not clear whether that's something that you are supposed to do, or that's something we chose to do for this example.
Right, yeah. So maybe that could be clarified on the previous one, and maybe here as well, I think, because we don't have any text here talking about attributes to include or exclude. So maybe, would that help, Karsten, if we have some text here below the example, for example, to explain these choices?
Well, I think if we explain them for the first example, that might be all that's needed.
Okay, yeah. If it's a similar argument here, then
yes.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, let's here the question is also like, okay, is it then in principle okay to remove the CT here if we provide that explanation and that it's not forbidden to include it basically, nor any other attributes. There could be a title attribute as well, or any number of other attributes. But this is trying to show a kind of minimal implementation, or let's say constrained, network-friendly implementation.
Right. So in this, with this amount of information, the client will be very limited in what they can extract from this. So if that thing has a title, you may want to include the title, so a human user can actually select which of the ones they want to work with.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, so we have to make that clear as well, that there could be attributes, including those like title. By the way, this document does show some queries that are maybe less useful in practice, and maybe on its own it might not be useful. Like the topic list, give me all your topics, so you get a list of links which might have machine-generated names, and they basically tell nothing, but at least you can enumerate through them and get more information per topic. So that's probably the intention here. That's just a starting point to, okay, this is a list of all my topics, and if you want to know more, you can just query each individual topic, basically using the methods defined by this document. So you can, for example, look up all the configurations per topic, which gives much more information than what link format could give, I think.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, then I think there was another example where more down, also where things are changed. Oh, it's probably here. Yeah, here we have an RT that gets removed, and also an observable attribute, basically. Yeah, this is a bit of a different situation, because I think here we are not querying a well-known core. So what it does is it sends a query to the topic collection resource. So it is basically a resource that's defined by this document. And basically you do a query on that. So it's not the same as a query to well-known core, for which we already have RFCs defining how that works. The idea here is basically of this change is that, well, we do a query on a resource that we define ourselves in this document. So we could also define here how the querying behavior for that resource is. And it just happens to use a link format here. Thanks for expanding. Yeah, this happens to use link format, and because it's not on well-known core, the idea was, well, there's no obligation to follow those specifications. We just reuse the link format here. So why not only send the useful information, which makes it more compact again. So because every link result there, we already know that it's observable. That's basically defined by the specification. And we already know the RT of each item which is included here. And the reason is that that's defined by this specification, basically. This resource only holds core.pos.data resource types, plus we query for it. And we also know that the resource does support query, because that's mandatory by the specification. So if you add all these things up, then you come to the conclusion that, repeating that RT information for every link that's returned is just, wasting bytes, basically, because you already know all that information as a client. The only thing you actually want to have is the list of links here. So this is a bit of a different case where now the RT is omitted and the observable attribute.
So does the reader know that this is omitted?
I don't think we have text here saying that it's omitted, but we also, since we define basically the resource functioning here. We also don't have text saying that it could be there, because this cannot really fall back to 7252 and 6690 query behavior, because, well, that's also not defined. So basically, I think in this document we have basically the possibility to say how this resource query should work. So we can either say it works in the same way as for well-known core, and that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to say in text here, okay, this is exactly how it works, and then you don't have to talk about attributes that are added or not added, I think.
Right.
But maybe to clarify, you could say like, hey, this does not have any attributes, and maybe say why that is. So that could be added, because maybe some people expect it, because it's link format, maybe some people would expect it to be there. So we want all the attributes. It's also possible actually to do it. So if you have like specific attributes defined, like title or other things, you could just add it to it. But I think the point was to not include attributes that you already know to be true and that get repeated possibly hundreds of times, and that would not add any value, just adding bytes. So yeah, but maybe it's good to have some explanation again here, that similar to what we said before, so that the server could add attributes there.
Oh, Christian is in the queue. Sorry.
I think that if we can make it so that this query subsetting works just like well-known core does, or works in a way that is somewhat compatible with well-known core, I think that would be good. And if the rule was more like, don't include information there that is obvious, and that information would not be printed in the first place, independent of what is being queried, that would be a nice property if we can uphold it. So, for example, looking at resource directory, what we did there was extend the 6690 did not describe what multiple query parameters mean, and we defined for RD like an extension of the well-known core properties to also say that, yep, if you can use multiple query parameters and they are ended together. If we could, as a working group, like informally evolve a model that people can apply to any resource that is that kind of queryable, and you don't see how far I'm waving my hands right now, that would be nice. I don't know if we can do it here, but maybe we can try.
One thing to notice probably that this response, should be fine and consistent. It's not telling the client the topic resource from which the link to the topic data resource was taken.
Yeah, it's also because the client is not asking for that, it's not querying for that. But that could be a problem. So I said already that some of the queries kind of in practice maybe are making less sense. So if you have these list of resources and you cannot link back to the basically the topic resources that contain the configuration, then it's maybe not even useful to query this.
The original chain of steps was supposed to be sending this request to the collection resource like here, but without URI query, and the result should have been a list of links to topic resources. And then, sure, you should have looked into those to get links to topic data resources.
Yeah,
here you are skipping one step and jumping to the topic data resource, but of course you don't learn the associated topic resources where you would find other metadata about the topic.
Yeah. So I think in this case you do miss the metadata.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, not only you miss that, you don't know exactly where to look for to get them. You should start from the first step again.
That's right, yeah.
Unless you build the link relation.
Yeah, so I think I also noticed that while reading, and decided, okay, let's leave that for working group last call. not fix it right now, but
I think I'll give that comment. Yes.
yeah, that's right.
Great. Okay, so we have spent a little more than half the meeting now.
Yeah, it's getting time, right? I think this was the last, maybe do a quick check, but this was the last of the examples that were changed. Oh, here's another one, but I think it's the same thing with the RT removal again. So if you already know what the RT will be, and this is also not a well-known core query, but basically doing a get on a particular resource that returns link format. I think the same below in the next example.
Yep.
So yeah, it's kind of the same theme. So that sums up the change and why it's still a rather big change, because we modify the payloads of the examples here. Maybe I can just propose a PR very soon that will add some more explanation to it, and then we could refine in future reviews, maybe also refine that text a bit more. I think Jaime wanted to do an update of the document, so something like tomorrow. So
Friday latest, I think he said.
Friday
so
latest,
yeah,
yeah.
we are in the right time frame. So if you can create this little PR soon and sync with him, that'll help him. Yes.
Yeah, I think it should be possible, like tonight or tomorrow morning, to do that. So that he can then take a look at it.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you so much for helping.
Yeah. So I'll just stay on for 10 more minutes then, and then drop out.
All right. Thanks again.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay. So next is Karsten. I think still with Bert first, right?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so just to remind people what this is about, in CoAP we have this blockwise transfer, which allows various block sizes, and we have a 3-bit field that tells us which block size we have, and we essentially have given 7 out of those meaning a power of 2, where the block size came in between 16 and 1024 bytes. And this also includes the scaling of the index we use for addressing those blocks. So we get a lot of bit optimization here. That was great for essentially UDP-based transports, but then when we added reliable transports, we wanted to be able to have blocks larger than 1024, because something like TCP can easily send something that is much larger. So we took the last remaining number, the number 7, and called this BERT, blockwise extension for reliable transport. And that essentially just means the block size is 1024, but you can send more than one block in one message. We could have done this with other sizes like 512 and 256 as well, but we only really needed it for 124, so that's what is in 8323, which is CoAP over TCP, TLS, and WebSockets. So that's the background, and we essentially made a decision in 2016, even though we were aware that this might actually be useful for datagrams as well, to limit this to reliable transports first. So that's one of the problems that we often have in the IETF, that we have pushed back against the concept, and then we cut it down to the minimal size and lose some quite useful applications for that concept. Now, one other reason to put this into H323 is that we have a negotiation mechanism in H323. So we already have everything in place that is needed to know whether your peer actually can work with those birds. And you just set the max message size to something that is 2048 or more, and then you can do bird. So that's works great, but it leaves the datagram people out in the dark. And now 9 years later, we actually have more and more opportunities for large datagrams. So there are actually some IoT ecosystems that can send larger datagrams, even though it's not something that all of them do. So 6LoWPAN essentially could do that all the time, but we weren't particularly interested in that, but we can do this today. We have devices like Power over Ethernet devices that are essentially power affluent and easily can work with jumbo datagrams, which are quite popular in many networks now. So you have 9 kilobyte data size, and you could put in an 8 kilobyte block size there without any problem. OSCORE has segmentation. What we are thinking about now is getting rid of this limitation to of BERT just to reliable transports, the stream-based transports, and allow allowed for datagram transports as well. So of course this leaves us with a question now: how do we do the negotiation? So it's we still have to answer that. If we want to untie BERT from reliable transports, we can decide that we want to do that. We have to answer this question about how do we indicate that capability. Of course, one way is just sending a BERT, and if you get back a 400, then probably the other side didn't understand it. But there may be more intelligent ways to do the capability indication or negotiation. So that's work that will need to be done. And the other question is not a technical but a procedural one. What is the document in which we want to put this? So this is such a trivial thing, saying, oh, by the way, you can now do this for datagrams as well, as you maybe already wanted 9 years ago. We need to create an RFC that actually updates 7959, the blockwise RFC, to enable that. Just like H323 updated 7959, this would now be the equivalent update for datagrams. And one idea that came up was just doing this in the corrections and clarifications document. So Christian wrote a PR that is already pretty much there. It doesn't say how to do the negotiation, but maybe it can just say you have to do some negotiation. The question really is corrections, clarifications the right document to do this with? So this is intended as a standards track document, but it's also intended to be active for quite some time. So it might be active for another half decade or so. And only then it will finally get ISG approval and will be officially part of the CoAP standard. And that's, I think, something we have to think about. So right now, I'm really even more interested in getting feedback on the formal, on the procedural side. I'm pretty sure we can solve the remaining technical problems here. But is CoreClar the right vehicle to do things that are a little bit more than corrections and clarifications? Because, well, 8323 is really clear about you can only do this for reliable transports. So this is not a clarification. And it's also a correction only if you think about this as a gap we left open and we can now close because we know how to do this. But maybe gap filling is not exactly the same thing as corrections. So that's something about this corrections and clarifications document that we probably need to understand for other changes we may want to make that go beyond corrections and clarifications. And now I would like to hear what people have to say.
I don't have any good input on that procedural thing, but some pointer that might help. This is not the first gap filling that I filed for CoreClar, so there's probably more of that. And the issue tracker should have like a tag or some tracking issue for that.
Yeah, as an individual, I see more sense in a separate document, personally. And it feels like this goes beyond the correction. So I wasn't around where BERT was developed, but the impression I had was it was developed with that in mind, and that's correct already. There's nothing to correct on that document in itself now. It's more about adding something new that is not around now, and that feels like a new document to me. But just a personal opinion.
I think the perception that the people who were around in 2016 have is that at the time we took a pickaxe and hammered this thing long enough that we could get it approved. So for some of us, this really is a bug in some ways. Yeah, as Christian says, we probably have more than one of those things. And what we also could develop is a pattern where we work on this for a while in the context of this document, and then spin them off into documents that actually get to be the new proposed standards that contain those changes. Christian, do you have an example of something that is on this gap filling side?
Yes, that's issue 35. So BERT is number one, and number two is that we have two transports that individually really find that an observed notification number is really always 0 because the transport provides implicit ordering. That would be TCP and OSCORE. And then we have signaling messages that were also only defined for TCP-ish transports. And then OSCORE came and said, yeah, kind of they can be encrypted too. So it's kind of in there, but yeah, like I think that it's not like there is a concrete use case where we need signaling necessarily on UDP, but allowing the 7xx codes to be something different than TCP-ish signaling messages on other transports would be just as weird. So I think for all those three, the direction is more like we don't necessarily need to enhance the for example the other enable the other cases now. Just write down that it's either this or nothing else, and over time this can be added. For example, with when someone writes up that it suffices to do path MTU discovery, and then you know that you can get that much data into the application, and then you can use it, for example, for UDP, or when some new 7xx message comes around, that does make sense for UDP, that we don't have to discuss kind of, is that really the same number space? Do they really behave the same? But already have set up that, yep, like those things, the orthogonal closure is indeed what we aim for.
But that sounds like a cohesive little document that would just port things over from H323 into the datagram space. So that sounds a little bit more like we want to have a separate document that does just that.
Fine with driving that.
Okay, I think I have some input here, which kind of leads me to think that we have this work item. I still think we want to develop this for a short while in the corrections and clarifications document before it really takes shape. But we would then go to the spin-off route and not make this a permanent part of the corrections and clarifications document. Good.
Thank you.
Then let's go to the final thing, which is href. Okay, I think everybody who's still here knows all this. And we had a working class call at the beginning of the month. And now we are trying to get the updated document for CRIs in before the internet draft deadline on Tuesday morning. So looking at the documents that we have, Meet Echo, do your work? Yes. We had a major review from ESCO, and now I'm 5 minutes too late to discuss this with him. So ESCO noted that we are not really saying very much about which co-op options you can combine and what they mean. So there is a section in the document that says, how would you use CRI-like information in a co-op message? And there are two things. You can have an entire CRI there. That essentially is the proxy URI replacement. And you could have just the scheme as a scheme number instead. And we have to say which one takes precedence, or whether we ask the servers to actually break if both are there. And actually, if you look into 7252, we didn't define all the cases for precedence there either. So I think we just have to think about this subject in a little bit more detail. So does anybody have a preference of what should overrule what, or whether we should just break?
On the topic of 7252 not saying anything, maybe that's something for core cloud.
Yes.
Whatever it is going to be said there. Yeah.
So my preference for any conflict is break.
Okay.
Because those are critical options. We don't just ignore them.
Right. Okay, yeah, that's a good direction. And on the IANA considerations, the question was, how do we fill the reference column of the CRI scheme number registry? And the problem here is that a reference might, first of all, say, how does this scheme actually work on the UI side? And then might say, how did we import this into the CRI side, if that's more than trivial. And my assumption was we don't really have to say this because it's clear you put into the reference column what you need to find out what you need. But Esko asked whether we have to be a bit more explicit about the reference column. So this is very, very bureaucratic here. But yeah, we have to have an opinion on this.
So is it about referring to whatever define the scheme number?
Yeah, that happens during registration because the scheme number is essentially meaningless. It doesn't have any consequences, except that it might be a 1 byte or a 2 byte number. So it wouldn't make a lot of sense to have a pointer to a document that said, oh, by the way, we used a 1 byte number because that's obvious from the number.
Yeah, I'm thinking if there was an actual URI scheme associated, you can link to the entry in the URI scheme registry. But if not, yeah, then you need to link to a document, but what archived where?
Yeah, so for the 1,000 or so entries he put into the registry at the start, we are not doing that work. So they will all point to the href document.
Right. For the future, who knows?
Yeah, and for the future, we probably have a little bit more energy to actually point to the real document where the scheme comes from. And that's, of course, inconsistent. So should we do something inconsistent here?
You can always express the inclusion of a reference, if any.
Yeah, and you can have two references as well in the reference column.
Sure,
I think
sure.
that's an important thing
Yes.
as well. So I was thinking that we have highly paid designated experts who are going to manage this aspect, and we don't have to write anything into the document that will then turn out to be limiting. That would be my preference here. Okay, and as we had some editorial nits, then let's go to the next set. Marco had a lot of items that are somewhere on the boundary between editorial and technical, which I'm still working on, and there is a PR with the actual editorial nits. So thank you very much. That is going to be useful, but it also will be another day for me to work on. And the same is true for Christian's comments. So we had an interesting discussion about indefinite length encoding. We in CBOR we typically do not put encoding constraints into the data model. So I was a bit careful about recommending to do that. But if somebody has the ability to put encoding constraints into the data model, they please can opt for definite length CRIs, and that's what the PR 110 says. And the other observation that Christian made is that section 2 is a mixture of different things, and we have to clean this up a little bit. And one observation is that some of these constraints are addressed by extended CRIs, and we need to fix the examples. So this is 107 and 110, which are done and just need reviews. And Thomas had lots of editorial stuff that already is submerged in PR 108. So that's the status of things. Those of you who were not at the Corel design team meeting where we decided some of these things, I'm just trying something new here, which is I have deleted the information about the initial values for the scheme numbers registry from the current editor's copy and intend to submit -19 without that information, just pointing to its previous revision where this information was included. And of course, in the RFC, we don't need this table because then we have the registry. So there's absolutely no point in keeping this table there. And also, there is no point in having ISG members leaf through 16 pages of scheme number mappings. Where it doesn't help that XML to RFC has totally broken table formatting. Yeah, so this is an interesting thing, and this will probably lead to a few hilarious moments when this goes through the ISG, but I think it's a good thing to do that. And the other observation was that we had this quote or adaptation of Greenspan's 10th rule, and I added a reference to that. So this is not the first reference of this kind I put into an internal draft, and we always get pretty nice discussions about these things at the ISG level. So it might not survive, but I think it's good to explain this little aperçu that is in the introduction of the document. That's all I have.
A question: if new entries would need to be added to that registry between version 19 referring 18 and when the registry will actually be created and populated, would that be about instructing Diana to look at version 18 plus a new little list provided somehow?
Well, we don't have an SLA on these things, so my assumption was this is the final list. We are not going to change the list during ISG processing. That's just not a sensible use of our time. And the first thing that the designated expert will do is do the first set of registrations that will be all the scheme numbers that came in. Unless we have something that obviously needs to be done quickly, but I'm not aware of anything like that.
Okay, so this is just a starting point to be registered for sure. There may be more. Okay.
Right.
Just out of curiosity, if the designated expert can do that, then why can't they do that for the whole list? I mean, the ones that we think will be used have explicit numbers anyway.
Correct. But for the ISG, it's probably useful to have something there. And I think we have the right compromise here by not including it in the document, but having it available for people to look at if they want to know what it is.
Good point. Thanks.
Great.
Carsten, by the way, for the editorial PR, is that completed just so that I can start looking at it?
Which PR?
The editorial PR with the names. I think it was 1010. The PR you quickly showed before.
112.
112, sorry. That's right. Is 112 complete to be reviewed? Okay. Have a look at it. And 111 too, I guess, but
yeah, I pushed a few things to this before this meeting, but I'm not going to change them anymore after this meeting. So I will do new PRs from the remaining items in the comments.
Right. And we expect a new version by Monday then.
Yes. And some PRs to look at in the course of tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks for the heads up. Okay, any more comments or questions? So on the AOB, you should have noticed, but we have a 2-hour course session scheduled for Bangkok. That's on Tuesday, March 18, and it's 2:30 to 4:30 UTC. So yes, it's in the middle of the night in Europe, and the first session of the day in Bangkok. We plan to resume interim meetings following IETF 122 with the same cadence, starting from April 9, and then all the way every 2 weeks until the cutoff for IETF 123. That's a plan for now, but yeah, we're trying to sync, of course, as usual, with the CBOR chairs. So Christian, you gave us a green light. We haven't heard from very explicitly, but hopefully your green light is sufficient to not collide.
I do think so, yes.
Okay. Okay, then next is checking with the working group 2, as usual, and if no one screams, we can book the new series. Last thing, we have 2 documents in working group last call ongoing until Friday this week, co-op DTLS LPN and DNS over co-op. Some reviews have started to come. Please continue. With that said, this was the last interim before Bangkok. So see you at IETF 122 online or on site. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
See you. Bye.
Goodbye.